Right. Well, first of all, I represent the Sheffield Central Library Action Group, which I set up on Facebook as I was concerned about the plans that the council had for the library. I did attend, together with nearly 400 people, the first meeting, which was held on Tuesday evening at the town hall. At the moment, at the meeting, the council's emphasis was on what any developer would do with this building as a hotel. And there was very little information about where, if that development did go ahead, where any new library would be moved. And I think the main concern that we have at the moment is that the consultation appears to be at the moment very much concentrating on this proposal by this development company, but there's very little information about where the money would come from if the library had to move and where exactly it would be located. I've actually just received a assurance, though, from Councillor Jack Scott that there will be further consultation of a no change, in other words, keeping the library in the present building. But obviously, as we all realise, the council would need to find money to revamp the building to 21st century standards. I think my main concern, and many others share my concern, is that at the moment the consultation is very one-sided, and I would argue that if you're going to have a consultation with the Sheffield public, you really ought to consult on all the various options at these meetings. I mean, okay, the council has organised 2 meetings already, and they have assured me that they will organise as many meetings as is needed according to public demand. But I do think they do need to be a little bit more clear about any future plans and where exactly a new building would be moved if this development did go ahead, and where the money is coming from. Now, I and many others would also argue that there are other options available. For instance, Manchester Library, which was recently reopened in 2014, came up with a very innovative idea, and what they did was they did receive some funding from the Manchester City Council, but they also set up an independent charity, like a library trust, if you like, and that meant that they were able to attract funding from independent grants, independent funding, and that helped to pay for a lot of what has happened to Manchester Library. And I understand there have been similar schemes in Liverpool, Birmingham, which I agree is a little bit different because that's obviously a very large library, and I'm not sure that Sheffield would be able to attract that sort of money. My other main concern is it right that the council should even contemplate letting a private development company cherry pick a building like this, which I understand, well, I do know, was paid for £10,000 was paid by J.G. Graves towards the cost of building the library, and Graves paid £20,000 for the whole gallery. I mean, this building was built as a civic space for the people of Sheffield, and a lot of people don't realise, but it's not just a library. It's obviously a lending library, reference library, children's library. There's also, of course, the library theatre and the Graves Gallery. Now, I mean, the library theatre has been neglected in discussions so far. I mean, there are a lot of amateur theatre companies or small theatre companies that use the library theatre for a number of reasons. Obviously, it's a lot cheaper to use that theatre than it would be to use the Lyceum or the Crucible. And also, you do tend to get alternative theatre in the library theatre. So I and many others would like to know where that would be moved to as well. I don't really want to bring the tree saga up, but I'm going to. I mean, the Councillor Jack Scott did bring it up at the meeting and saying that the council have learnt their lesson about listening to the concerns of Sheffield residents, and I certainly hope they have. I'm a new Sheffielder. I moved over here in 2000. I live here now to live with my now husband. But I love this building, as do many people that have lived and grew up in Sheffield, including my partner. And I think there's a lot of love and affection for this building as well. And I think people are very concerned about what exactly is going to happen to the building. I would also say that even if, let's say for argument's sake, that the development company was allowed to develop this into a 5-star hotel, what would happen in a couple of years' time, say, if the hotel didn't work out? Then what? Then we're left with a lovely building as a hotel, but then what exactly will the council do? I mean, we have a 4-star hotel just across the road here, the Mercure St Paul's, and obviously there are a lot of hotels. I understand that Sheffield probably does need a 5-star hotel, and I have to really emphasise that me and most members of my group and people I've spoken to are not against investment in Sheffield. We welcome investment. I just wonder if this is the right building for a 5-star hotel. I mean, there are plenty of other buildings and sites that this development company could be looking at, and I think the council have to think very carefully before they give, any go-ahead, and listen very carefully to the concerns of Sheffield residents, basically.
We understand is there a protest next Friday?
No, that's not a protest. That's the second meeting.
Oh, next Friday. That's the meeting.
Yes, yes. I have some concerns about the meetings themselves. At the moment, they're being held in their largest room in the town hall, but because of health and safety considerations, only 200 people can attend. Now, what happened on Tuesday is because there was an unprecedented number of people that came to the meeting on Tuesday, both people that had booked online and people that hadn't booked online, the council divided the meeting into two. So 1 hour, the first hour for the first meeting and the second hour for the second meeting. Now that sounds great, but the problem was that by the time the two councillors had their presentation, there was really only half an hour left for questions from the audience, which I would argue wasn't long enough. And I have tried to say to Councillor Jack Scott that maybe a larger venue could be sought, but at the moment he's saying that they will have as many meetings as possible at the town hall. But I think a lot of people aren't happy about it, because it would be nicer to have a large meeting in a larger venue. But if the council aren't prepared to do it, I'm not sure what I can do. I have other ideas. I mean, I know other libraries around the country have done read-ins, like silent protests where people have read in the library, and if it comes to that, I'd be very happy to organise something like that. But I think the main concern is that I just hope that the council is listening to people. I mean, as I said, the council did bring up the fiasco with the trees recently, which, as you know, made international headlines, and I certainly hope a similar thing doesn't happen with this. I mean, one of the members of my group who attended the meeting on Tuesday quite rightly said that this is one of the last buildings that is owned by the Sheffield public. It's a civic space that anyone can go into. It doesn't matter whether you're homeless, whether you're very wealthy. You can go into the library, not just to read a book. You can go in there just to sit and read a newspaper. There's all sorts of things you can do in the library. And is it really right that a city like Sheffield, with two major universities and a great academic reputation, should be seen to move away from this city centre iconic building to another building which by definition won't be right in the city centre? I mean, the council have assured us it will be in the heart of the city centre, whatever that means, but we would like to know more.